What if you woke up one day and your brain was gone? Not slowly, just missing, eaten by yourself. This sounds like horror fiction, but for one very strange animal, it's not a nightmare. It's Tuesday. Meet the sea squirt, also known as a tunicate. At first glance, it looks like a small, squishy tube stuck to a rock. It doesn't move. It doesn't have a face. It just sits there, filtering water. Not exactly the stuff of legendary biology, but the sea squirt has a secret. And that secret forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. What is a brain even for? The larva that lives like a scientist. To understand, we have to go back to the beginning. A sea squirt starts life as a tiny, free-swimming larva. And in this stage, it looks nothing like its adult self. It has a tail, it has muscles, it has a primitive spinal cord, and it has a small but functional brain, complete with a light-sensitive spot that works like a simple eye. In other words, the baby sea squirt is a little tadpole-like creature that swims through the ocean, looking for something very specific, a perfect place to settle down for the rest of its life. It needs a spot with good water flow, not too many predators, and a hard surface to attach to. So it swims. It explores, it gathers information, it processes light, movement, and current. Its brain is working hard, solving a single critical problem. Where do I live? This is the most important decision the sea squirt will ever make, because once it chooses, it never moves again. The great brain sacrifice. And here's where things get weird. Once the sea squirt finds its perfect rock, it attaches itself head first and never leaves. Its tail is no longer needed. Its muscles are no longer needed. Its light-sensitive eye? Pointless. It's not going anywhere. So the sea squirt does something extraordinary. It eats its own brain. Enzymes break down the brain and nervous system. The cells are recycled for energy and building materials. The brain, which took time and energy to grow, is digested like any other piece of tissue. Why? Because brains are expensive. They consume a huge amount of energy relative to their size. For a stationary adult that just needs to sit still and filter food from the water, a brain is a luxury it cannot afford. It's like keeping a supercomputer running to do the job of a single light switch. So the sea squirt gets rid of it, permanently. What this tells us about brains. This is disturbing to think about because we are deeply attached to our own brains. They feel like us. But the sea squirt reminds us of a fundamental biological truth. Brains are not magical souls. They are tools. Very specific tools for very specific jobs. The job of a brain is to process information and coordinate movement. If you don't move, if your environment is stable and your needs are simple, you don't need a brain. Jellyfish don't have brains. Sponges don't either. They get along fine. The sea squirt takes this to its logical extreme. It builds a brain for one purpose, to find a home. Then it eats that brain because the purpose is complete. The brain has served its function. Now it's just expensive meat. Think about that. A brain is not an end in itself. It is a means to an end. The end is survival. Once survival no longer requires complex information processing, the brain becomes optional. Then it becomes lunch. The deeper lesson. This is unsettling because we humans cannot imagine life without our brains. They are the seat of our memories, our personalities, our sense of self. But the sea squirt has no sense of self. It doesn't lie awake wondering about the meaning of its existence. It doesn't regret eating its own mind, because there was nothing to regret with. The sea squirt's strategy is brutally efficient. It invests heavily in a brain during its most vulnerable life stage, then liquidates that investment once it's no longer useful. In evolutionary terms, this is genius. In emotional terms, it's horrifying. But it also teaches us something humbling. Our brains are not eternal. They are not the center of the universe. They are biological machines that evolved to solve problems: movement, prediction, social coordination. And if those problems didn't exist, neither would our brains. The sea squirt is not stupid. It's the opposite. It is smart enough to know when to stop being smart. Final thoughts. So the next time you feel proud of your big, complex human brain, remember the sea squirt. It started with a brain. It solved its problem. And then it ate the evidence. We like to think that intelligence is the highest goal of evolution. But evolution doesn't care about intelligence. It cares about survival. And sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is stop thinking entirely. Stick yourself to a rock and digest your own mind for spare parts.